Righty-ho! Welcome back to another episode of the Single Malt Review. We have got something for you this time that is just a little bit rare, dare we say a little bit exclusive. It's a Glenfarclas Family Cask. Ooh. Which is a series, a long-running series now, of single cask whiskies from the Glenfarclas Distillery. And they have done one per year of operation, almost. Going back within reason, anyway. I think the earliest one was in the early 50s, but I'd have to look that up. Anyway, it's really quite interesting whiskey, because being single cask from Glenfarclas, which does not... It's one of the very few distilleries which does not sell its produce to blends. Everything goes into single casks. It makes some really quite interesting and quite diverse whiskies, particularly sherried whiskies, that goes into its house blends, which tend to be sherry dominated depending on the age. So this one, 1989, bottled in 2012, strangely enough, exactly like the last one we had, the Linkwood. We didn't realise that until we got this bottle out. 59.9% volume, so it's kept its volume really rather well. And one of 622 bottles. So this was a big old butt that produced this one. So Dave, have you encountered Glenfarclas particularly in the past?
Yes, I've had the occasional Glenfarclas. I'm fond of the 10. I've also sampled the 20 and even the 30 once. Maybe even the 40.
I did end up with a bottle of the 40.
Yes.
After the Christchurch earthquake, in fact. Its gift to me was a damaged bottle of rather affordable and rather good Glenfarclas 40-year-old. Earthquake did it no harm at all. So this one, not quite 40 years old, but
23.
Single cask.
It's a phenomenally dark red
1989.
colour.
It's really just the pure expression of a sherry butt. It's got all the hallmarks, that really dark copper to it, and
I would have assumed a port influence if I had not been told otherwise. It is so dark and so red.
no, that's probably not. Could almost be a first fill. First fills are often too harsh to get this old, but given just that strength of colour, I think it could actually be a first fill. But if not a first, then a second, and quite a strong, quite an active second. If it is that second, it may have only had whiskey in it for a few years before they filled the second batch, where it waited for those couple of decades.
To get this sheer dark pungency of colour, it's definitely either a fresh cask or a unique cask, certainly.
So rather strong, but we'll see what it's got.
Some floral notes, some jasmine, some lavender.
It's got the fruit crate and spice, dried fruit and peel. Really, it's one of the more textbook sherried whiskies you can get. It's quite a youthful nose, actually. And just archetypical sherried whiskey. Like really few other things. But then there's that Glenfarclas character is there. That slight, it's like an aniseed or a licorice. There's the more beguiling spicy characters that you get with a Glenfarclas, which you just do not get with other whiskey, particularly sherried whiskey. Some sherried whiskey can quite rapidly start tasting like sherried whiskey and very little else. Glenfarclas really wears those sherry characters well while maintaining its identity as Glenfarclas. You really have to try it to know the difference, and you have to try the slightly older whiskey as well. I would recommend anything above the 20-year-old will give you that real sherried plus intrinsically Glenfarclas characters. But anyway, as for this one, we've looked at the nose and it's monumentally promising. Let's see what's on the palate.
It's a very strong, spicy spirit hit. Also extremely sweet, as you'd expect from a Highland whiskey.
There's cinnamon, nutmeg, mace, clove.
A little chilly even.
There's tremendous, tremendous vanilla coming in after those other spices. There's almost, if anyone has ever had the unfortunate experience of tasting vanilla essence when they were a small child and believed that conceivably it tasted like it smelled, which they will have realised it does not, the intensity of this is almost like the aftertaste of that experience. There is just so much vanilla coming through from this European wood. And of course it is tremendously strong as well, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water here to see if it might open it up just a bit. Although that said, it is not particularly harsh. There's no huge burn and there was no real nose prickle in the aroma.
The fortified wine characters are very strong, very clear. It's much of a liqueur-y whiskey. With the water, the sweetness is opening up.
So that has freshened it. There's now cherries, red apple skins, almost a preserved cherry. The fruitcake element is coming back in now, sort of a warm brandied fruitcake.
A spiced apple pie.
That cinnamon is very, very evident.
Wow. Now, considering this is often aged with the linkwood we tried in the previous episode, distilled in 89, bottled in 2012, it has touched 4 different decades, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s and the 2010s, but it is a world of difference.
This one, for all that it is a really fairly mature whiskey, given its age, it has tremendous youth to it. It's not overly softened, it's not overly wooded, but the keenness of the spices and the fruit and the vanilla that it's bringing is very, very fresh and youthful. Whereas that linkwood was quite waxy, very, very soft, and had some old wood characteristics to it. This one is far more on the youthful end. Not in any way to its detriment, it's just a different whiskey. And you can see that coming in the strength. This one, I will just have to refresh my memory, 55.9. So that's a significant percentage higher than that last one, and you can really taste that. Generally speaking, the lesser whiskey loses as it ages, the slower it ages, and the more youthful characteristics it will retain as it gets older. Certainly doesn't mean it's going to be any better or worse once bottled. It will just be a different whiskey on the other end. And if anything, that water has livened it up even more. I think it may actually have been a little smoother at full strength. This addition of water has really livened up the apple skins, the ester characters, as they want to do, have really, really come out in that addition of the water. And if anything, I think I might have preferred it at full strength, just because it was just a little bit smoother, a little bit warmer than it is now, but it's still a tremendous, tremendous whiskey.
My experience has been different. I've found this softer and more accessible with the addition of the water. It's brought out more flavours, broader spectrum. It's easier on the senses, on the nose and on the tongue. I like it more with the addition of a little water.
Now, if you are in the market for the Glenfarclas Family Casks, they are certainly available, but that said, they are rather exclusively priced, and you will of course have to go to a specialist to find them, or to Glenfarclas themselves. They maintain rather a good library of them in their warehouses, of which there are many. They are not cheap, but nor are they usurious. Glenfarclas has always been very good at selling their whiskey for a sensible price, and that goes for their normal range as well. They are some of the most realistically priced and realistically marketed older whiskies in the market. Hello, Campbell. We've been missing you. So do have a look at the range. If you're into your slightly older whiskies, particularly between the 20 to 30 year old bracket, you may find, as I do, that Glenfarclas is really, really very competitive in terms of how it presents its pricing. You don't get these frankly stupid prices that you get from distilleries and companies that would like to imply that their whiskey is something tremendously special and demand these absurd prices for it. Glenfarclas is, in many cases, superior, and in all cases, the equal of other whiskies, and yet they price it to move, and so it does. So, I very, very, very positive towards their attitude there.
Glenfarclas, not as sweet as a typical Speyside. It's certainly a sweet whiskey, but not the same amount of honey and sugar and their kind of extreme sweetness, which can sometimes characterise
I think
the
they,
Highland style. So
they
more
have,
accessible if you're perhaps a bit wary of the sweet end of the spectrum.
They have quite a few Highland leanings, I think. It could be said that they make an altogether Highland style, though they are distinctly in Speyside. There's nothing stopping a Speyside distillery producing a Highland style or vice versa. You only have to taste Arran to figure out that distilleries, even if they're on an island, can produce a style completely separate to that. Arran producing a very, very typical Speyside style whiskey, just going to show that you can make what you want wherever you are, really, in this day and age. But yes, Glenfarclas, really, really very high quality whiskey, and the Family Casks are more or less. There are a few exceptions, but I won't even bother going into them because they're so uncommon. More or less the only way to get a single cask expression of Glenfarclas. They are available, they are expensive, but I think by and large you are getting what you pay for, and you can get some quite young ones as well, if you're into your younger Glenfarclas, which a few people are. But scores-wise, this is an easy 8.5 to me. Sherried whiskey isn't my number one, but I can absolutely appreciate it for what it is, and this is easily an 8.5 for me. It's probably the best sherried whiskey that I have. It's probably the best sherried whiskey that I've had for a wee while, so I'll see if I can save it for a bit longer yet. What do you think, Dave?
Well, at the risk of sounding unoriginal, I would have to agree with the 8.5. It is right up there. It's a phenomenal drop. It's got age, it's got character, it's got engaging sweetness.
No, consistent scores, and I think a very consistent dram from a very consistent distillery. And if you haven't tried Glenfarclas, then I really, really would recommend you do. Because it's built to be a single malt, and you can tell. It doesn't go into blends, so yeah, it's very, very uncommon as distilleries go. But either way, we will have something equally uncommon for you in the next episode, I am quite sure. In the meantime, this has been the Single Malt Review. Do catch us next time. Slàinte.